This unthinkable act now shocking the world. An assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. At a campaign rally filled with Secret Service and security, how did things go so wrong?
Clearly,
No!
what happened on Saturday in Pennsylvania was a failure. This was about as close a call you're going to get for a president.
Hold on, chat, hold on. Chat, I'm gonna mute. Chat, I'm gonna mute. Chat. Yes. I have lemonade in my keyboard.
I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
Why wasn't the shooting area being guarded by the Secret Service?
They clearly identified it as a threat. Yet, mysteriously, they chose to put it outside the Secret Service perimeter of responsibility.
And what does this mean for upcoming campaign stops and the future of the presidency?
What I'm looking in Pennsylvania was a failure. And I don't think you'll find a credible Secret Service agent that will try to talk you out of that sad reality. This was a failure. And ultimately, whether we learn that really the police were supposed to cover that building and or that roof, the buck stops on the desk of the Secret Service. It was their security plan. It's their responsibility. They'll need to step up and say that.
Figluzzi straight up calls the shooting a failure on the part of the Secret Service, but says there are several things that could have contributed to the oversights. So what went wrong here? I mean, it seems like it could have been a domino effect, one thing after another, but to me, there were some pretty big glaring errors. How did this even happen?
Yeah, I actually just dropped
we got
a
X
column
giving his keyboard
for
top before
MSNBC
GTA
Daily
6
online, where I write a regular column, and it digs deeply into the potential scenarios that led to this fatality. Let's please not forget that while it was a near miss for former President Trump, it was a fatal shot for a spectator, and 2 other spectators now are in the hospital. So this was about as close a call you're going to get for a presidential candidate as you'll ever see.
In his column, Figluzzi writes, "The Secret Service failed Saturday. America deserves to know why."
What do I say in my column? I look at potential scenarios. One, this is not conjecture. It's largely based on what we've already known and reported, which is the Secret Service was well aware of this building and the potential risk it posed. That's coming from multiple sources at Secret Service to multiple media outlets. The distance from the building to the podium, based on the elevated nature of this building, which gives the high ground to a potential bad guy, they clearly identified it as a threat. Yet, mysteriously, they chose to put it outside the Secret Service perimeter of responsibility. Now, that means likely that it was delegated to state or local police to cover, and that there had to be some level of detail about what cover means. Are you going to post officers on the ground and simply prevent people from getting into the building? That's nice. Are you also going to put someone on the roof or have eyes on that roof? Because again, it's not the Secret Service perimeter, so it's yours. And that had to be clearly communicated.
Figluzzi says there was major oversight in one extremely important area.
So what's happened here? A failure to communicate, almost guaranteed. Finger pointing, I thought you had it. No, I thought you had it. There's another scenario that I've seen and don't like at all, because in my FBI experience, it leads to catastrophe. And that's the possibility of mixed responsibilities. Hey, our Secret Service snipers and police snipers will cover that roof. We've got the roof. What you need to do, police department, is cover the ground so that no one is ever going to get in that building. You've locked it down. You've talked to the owner. You've got the locks and keys. Well, what are we hearing? The owner of that building is saying, no one ever talked to me, not before, during the advance for the rally, and not after the shooting. So we have a serious breakdown here.
According to Figluzzi, communication wasn't the only oversight. In fact, it was the area of the rally that the Secret Service knowingly didn't cover. We spoke about the jurisdiction, so to speak, whether it was the local authorities' responsibility or the Secret Service to kind of guard
I'll get one on DoorDash,
that area. And some of the reports I've seen say the shooter was only 500 feet away. So how do they make that determination that it should be the local authorities covering that area? Because I'm assuming they're not trained in the same way as the Secret Service.
You are assuming correct, and that's a hard question, because you really can't have your this both ways. You can't say, oh yes, during the advance we recognize this building as a threat, and by the way, it's outside our perimeter and we gave it to the police. Now, we haven't, I want to be careful, we have not heard that line per se from the Secret Service. In fact, they've been incredibly closed mouth here. They haven't stepped up and said, we own this, we're always responsible, no matter what. They've just hunkered down and said nothing. But yeah, it's inconsistent to say high ground, threat, well within a rifle
target
range,
has it.
and comma, yeah, we gave it to somebody else. Very inconsistent.
Wait, they know my keyboard, that's insane.
They certainly measure. They know the counter sniper team for Secret Service comes in on an advance. They do a measurement. Hey, that building's 150 yards away. That's an easy shot, even for a rookie with a rifle. We've got to cover it. And then, oh, let's give it to the locals. Something's inconsistent there.
So Figluzzi says not only were there inconsistencies, but potential security measures that were overlooked, like the simple step of checking and double checking when it comes to backup.
The other thing that happens throughout an event like this, and I've been on many of them, is you do constant periodic check-ins with your hosts. What does that sound like? You get on the radio, or I've seen people physically go around. That's a great practice. Hey, post number 1, you got the building, right? You awake? You okay? Have you been shot, abducted? You eating a sandwich? All good on post 1? Get the feedback. Yeah, all good, post 1. That's like 101 of special event posts. So what happened here? What was
that? Easy, I got Nicky, we're going.
Get on the radio and say, hey, hi building, you good on post 1? No answer?
Oh wait.
Did the police go, yeah, we're good. We're eating sandwiches. I don't understand, but I will tell you this, the Secret Service model is based on multiple redundancies and layers of security, so that if one fails, they've got backup, right? Everything.
It's still doing VVV.
So I don't get it.
Security measures aside, there was some concern that federal and local authorities dismissed the warning signs brought up by witnesses at the rally.
And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit... He's got a gun!
He was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service.
We were telling the police. We were pointing at him for the Secret Service. They were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see.
Now, I know one of the big questions on everyone's mind, there are many that are unanswered, but what people are really clamoring toward is why may the Secret Service or any local officials there have ignored some of the warnings? I mean, we've seen the video of people saying, hey, there's someone up on the roof over there. Why might these warnings, so to speak, have been ignored?
Well, it's not, I see it as not, I'm with you. I see it as not so much ignored with regard to the spectators pointing and shouting to the police, but rather a dropped ball and confusion. What the spectators are describing is officers kind of looking at them saying, what are you talking about? What roof? What do you see? We don't see it. And what that means is the officers were not getting on their radio, right? They're not, get on the radio. We have witnesses saying something's up on the roof. Constant communication. So will this investigation find that they weren't on the same frequency as Secret Service? That's a huge problem. I've seen this happen. It's a huge problem.
I need literally 3 minutes.
Because the Secret Service guards their frequency very carefully, and they use an encrypted federal frequency. So they might give one walkie-talkie to one officer in one department and say, you're the keeper of the federal radio. This gets very odd. The Secret Service may have a police radio that's unencrypted, so they can hear police traffic. But what this gets back to, Sierra, is something we already talked about: confusion and misunderstanding about who was responsible for what, right? So if the police are like, yeah, what roof? That's a sign to me They didn't know they were responsible for the roof, right? If they were. We have reports now, multiple reports
So I'm all good,
that
I
an
got it.
officer went up a ladder or
No, I'm all
climbed
good, I'm
up to the
chilling.
roof because of the
Yeah, I'm
spectators'
sorry.
concerns.
Anyone
Took a
from the
look at the shooter. Shooter looked at him. Officer reportedly went back down the ladder. Okay, so did that officer get on the radio and give an emergency signal? I have
It'll be
contact.
fine. I got it. Thank you.
It's contact. Shooter. I don't know, and because this is important to find out, because if that officer had said shooter on roof, I have contact, which means I have an armed person, that Secret Service sniper or other sniper could have taken that guy out in a millisecond, and shots never would have been fired at former President Trump.
Now, we're still working to learn more about the shooter. Obviously, it's only been a couple of days since the incident, but we do know he's a 20-year-old person. I mean, to me, that's almost a kid. He can't even legally drink. So it's not in the way that he's this mastermind assassin who's been trained for years. To me, it almost seems like he slipped through the radar.
Well, yeah, I mean, there isn't even any radar. He doesn't exist. He has virtually no social media, if any at all. The FBI, I was on a call this weekend for the media with the Department of Justice and FBI and Attorney General and the director. And they told us some interesting things. One of the things they said of interest was that they're almost solely focused on the shooter's phone right now. So that tells me that, yeah, the computer signature is not there. Social media is not there. It's all about his phone. And when they say they're focused on the phone, trying to gain access to the phone, what's that mean to us? It's encrypted. There's a password they can't break right now. That's what I took away from this. That's not their words, but my words. When they tell me they're focused on the phone, they're trying to access the phone. So look for, let's pay attention to what they find in that phone.
Officials have already begun the search of Cripps' home and personal information, and Figluzzi expects even more details to come out in the coming weeks.
By the way,
they won't be able to open the phone. No shot.
Complete overlay, usually computer-assisted graphics. You'll see a really state-of-the-art, minute-by-minute creation of what he ate for breakfast that morning, where how he traveled. They'll use this from cell phone tracking, right? From any highway tolls, any cameras in the area. They will have a story to tell visually and audibly from his breakfast that morning all the way to the shooting. And they'll gather every witness's cell phone. They'll gather the media coverage footage. They'll gather the Secret Service radio traffic, the police radio traffic. All of that will be melded together to give us an actual step-by-step account of what happened and when.
While investigators are still searching for a motive to the crime itself, there's still the lingering question of how the gunman was able to pull the trigger at all.
The larger question, Sarah, is
I can't even click anymore. My keyboard is just fucking cooked. Chat, I think, oh my god, dude. Negative motive. Interesting. Chat, I'll play a controller game or a fucking, if there's any good races, I'll do a race with them.